I wholeheartedly thank IoT Academy for providing me the opportunity to speak remotely and share my ideas with everyone present here. I appreciate your support and flexibility. Yeah, ma'am, you could share the slides. Now, firstly, before we get into the topic, let's know what exactly is research. Research, as the word indicates, research, it is a systematic and structured investigation, that seeks to expand knowledge, uncover new insights, and provide evidence-based understanding in various fields. So research cannot be based on emotions, it cannot be based on abstract values. It has to have some proof. Okay, evidence is required for research. It is vital in understanding human, addressing complex problems, and driving innovation. Research encompasses, a wide range of methodologies. Now, moving to the next slide. Yeah, so we're going to look into the introduction, then ethical issues in research, plagiarism in academic research, ethical decision-making in research, and conclusion. Next slide, ma'am. Then, now this is what about I was speaking about research. Now, next slide, ma'am. Now, what exactly is research ethics? Now, as on the slide, as it is written, research ethics is defined as ethics of planning, conduct, and reporting of research. Actually, it is a set of principles and guidelines that ensure responsible, safe, and credible research. They protect the rights and welfare of research participants and guide the conduct of scientific researchers. We get to know whatever data that we are putting forth, everything is true. That is the main concept of research ethics. We are not disheartening anyone. We are not causing any violation either to the living or non-living and trying to project out the real data. That is research ethics. Now, under this, we are having the key principles. What are the key principles of research ethics? First one is honesty, objectivity. What do you mean by objectivity? Objectivity means here, as it is said, it is based on the facts and figures. Okay, and not on our beliefs or feelings. It is not ruled by our emotions or feelings, but it is based on facts and figures. Then coming to the next one, that's integrity. Now, integrity means you have to be, it's about being honest, having, firm moral principles and values. Then coming on to transparency. Transparency means you're trying to be very open and honest. I'll cite certain examples. We'll take up certain case studies in the future slides. Accountability. Accountability means these are the characteristic features any researcher should have whenever he's taking up a research project. So when it comes to accountability, it means he or she has to be responsible for the things that happen. He has to take up the entire responsibility for whatever data that he is presenting, okay, or whatever conclusions, outcomes of the research that he is presenting, he or she has to be responsible. Then aspect for intellectual property. Now, this refers to, the creations of mind. It can include invention or literary design or symbols, basically, which we use in commerce. It is legally protected. Okay. And then coming to confidentiality. So confidentiality, it is nothing but a set of rules that limits access or place restrictions on use of certain types of information. Okay. So now, for instance, if I could elaborate on this, suppose there is a patient on whom the research is being conducted. So for instance, if you think there is a HIV patient in the place where we are working, and suppose I name the patient, normally we mention it as subject. Okay, the terminology given over there is as subject. If I mention the details of the patient on whom the research is being done, then there will be a lot of criticism and the person also will be forced to leave his job. There won't be inclusivity. So there should always be confidentiality on the topic that we are working on, the person that we are working, so that it helps us in having a smooth conduct of research and we get our results at the earliest. Then coming to responsible publication, this is for the betterment of people, gaining knowledge betterment of people and betterment of planet also. Responsible publication. So whatever I publish, it shouldn't be anything fake or anything, very delusional, wherein just like that people live with a fantasy that yes, now this also can happen, or this particular disease also can be cured. It shouldn't be like that. It should be supported with facts and figures. Then it should be non-discrimination. As I told you, we have to include. It should be, our research should be inclusive, irrespective of caste, creed, color, age, sex, everything. Then there should be competence. Competence means it's the ability of doing something very well, very perfectly when we do. Then animal care. Most of the time we see that as per the ethical guidelines, we are not supposed to harm any animal until and unless there is no other alternative. So right now, most of the animal studies are not permitted, and we perform it on cell lines rather than, excuse me, rather than doing the study on rat and monkey. We are doing it on cell lines to a larger extent. And human subject protection, definitely for the protection of the human race. Our research should nowhere damage the human race. We have to protect the human race. So these are some of the characteristic features or principles which are necessary when we look into research. Next slide, ma'am. Okay. Now coming to what exactly is plagiarism. So as I told you, plagiarism, it's an act of presenting another person's work or idea as their own. Someone else's work. We sometimes do rephrasing, or right now we've got so many online softwares, AI softwares, wherein we put our data, we paraphrase it, and then we publish it. But there also you have percentage of plagiarism which is counted. It all depends upon the type of journal that we are presenting, presenting our manuscript to the journal, wherein there is a percentage of plagiarism that is accepted. Mostly it is only 20% is accepted. Plagiarism, if you classify it further, it is broadly classified into accidental, intentional, and unintentional. Most of the time people don't know. The new researchers, the ones who are new into the field of research, they really don't know what exactly is plagiarism. So it's accidental plagiarism, that is due to the lack of plagiarism facts and understanding of citation or referencing style. We are having referencing styles, right? So people don't know, and they simply unknowingly, they don't know that they are doing it. They don't know the concept of plagiarism. What exactly is plagiarism? Plagiarism is act of presenting another person's work or idea as our own. But definitely now, if you take a school student, when he's given a research, given a minor project at the school level or even at the graduation level, until and unless this topic is introduced to them, they really don't know what exactly is plagiarism. Plagiarism is simply lifting out someone's content and trying to show it as it is our own content by changing the words there sometimes. So accidentally, most of the time, at the younger people who are not aware about research, get into accidental plagiarism. Then we have intentional plagiarism. Now, what exactly is intentional plagiarism is that, wherein people, that's a deliberate act. That's a deliberate act of copying without giving proper acknowledgement to the original author. Okay, suppose we are trying to trying to copy some content from a source A. Okay, then it is definitely that we acknowledge from where we have lifted the particular name of the journal, all the details of the journal along with the article, all these things. So there is a procedure for it. So intent, sometimes people do, it's a deliberate act. It wantedly, with all conscience feeling, they try to copy someone's work without giving them acknowledgement. We can copy, but we also have to acknowledge it to an extent. We can copy to an extent and acknowledge it for sure. But here what happens, people simply copy and don't even acknowledge. So that is intentional plagiarism. And the after effects, the consequences of such kind of intentional plagiarism is very fatal. Okay, it is not good. Then unintentional. Now, what happens in unintentional? The person is aware of the concept of plagiarism. He or she knows that what exactly is plagiarism, but the vastness of the available information It influences the thoughts, and the same ideas may come out via spoken or written expressions, as one's own. It could be possible that some other article may also have the same ideas that I have. Okay, because we are all human beings and more or less we live in the same environment. So more or less the ideas can be same. The words can be different. The language that we are using can be different, but the concept could be same. So this is unintentional plagiarism. So we are having three different types of plagiarism. One is known as accidental, wherein the person is not at all aware of the concept of plagiarism. Intentional, where the person is totally aware but wantedly tries to copy someone else's content without acknowledging them. And coming to unintentional plagiarism. In unintentional plagiarism, there is so much of vast information on the web that what ideas you get, even I may get the same ideas, and we may represent the same thing in our manuscript, though the language could be different. The language and how we put it, it could be different, but the idea, the concept may be same. That comes under intentional plagiarism. Next slide, ma'am. And now coming to types of plagiarism. And when it comes to types of plagiarism, the most common types, these are the most common types, but you have several other types also existing. Firstly, coming to global plagiarism. Now, what exactly global plagiarism? It is nothing but claiming others' entire work in your own words, paraphrasing type. Okay, more or less a very much coinciding with each other. So global plagiarism, anywhere, because on the net, everything is available, wherein, I claim some other author's work as my own work by changing the words, by putting it in my own words. That is global plagiarism. Then you have self-plagiarism. Most of the time, people think that self-plagiarism is okay, but kindly listen, self-plagiarism is also not good. That also has consequences. Self-plagiarism is, suppose I'm writing, this is my third paper for publication. So if I lift some content, the introduction part, if I lift it from my previous paper, suppose I'm working on the same, suppose I'm working on a medicinal plant. So today in my first paper, I may talk about the antimicrobial activity of that particular plant. In my second paper, I may talk about the anti-diabetic activity of that particular plant. So in the introduction, what happens? The plant remains the same. The only activity is varying. I may talk about antimicrobial, I may talk about anti-inflammatory or anti-diabetic. Only the methodology and the concept, the topic on which the objective is varying, but the plant remains the same. So what I can do, if I feel that, I can copy the introduction of my second research article into my third research article, then that is known as self-plagiarism, where I'm lifting my own content from my previous paper. That is also not advisable. That also comes under self-plagiarism. Then coming to patchwork plagiarism. Patchwork plagiarism is also known as mosaic, M-O-S-A-I-C, mosaic plagiarism. Here, the author copies an original work, substituting synonyms and changing sentence structure to make it appear different. Most of the time it is active work, active voice into passive voice. Most of the researchers do this, but it is really not advisable. We could actually how research is done is basically you read at least 5 to 10 papers, maximum you reach 10 papers, then you sit and self-reflect, you think, then you come up with a novel concept. Reading again and again, several papers, and coming out with a concrete concept, that is actually research. It could be getting a positive result is also research, getting a negative result is also research. But here what happens in mosaic plagiarism or patchwork plagiarism, wherein, we try to change the language, we substitute the similar words, synonyms, and, we try to change it from active voice to passive voice. So that is the most common type of plagiarism, which our students also do when they submit their project work. So that is patchwork plagiarism or mosaic plagiarism. Then coming to verbatim plagiarism, this is, verbatim, this is also done. Here what happens exactly is you are copying someone's text word to word. You're copying someone's text word to word without, substituting the synonym also. Means just direct copy, cut, copy, paste. that is called verbatim plagiarism, where you are not even bothering to give the synonyms of it. We are not even making minor modifications of giving the meanings of it, just word copy paste what we are doing. That is called as verbatim plagiarism. Then coming to paraphrasing, this is most common type. We are having so many online softwares, wherein you just put the content. The most common one is Quillbot. We put the content here. It will paraphrase. It will rearrange the sentences and give you. Okay, once again, here also it is always again active voice to passive voice or passive voice to active voice. So all these are the most common. You have several others also, but these are the most common types of plagiarisms. Next one, ma'am. Ethical issues in research. Now, firstly, if we have to know what exactly you mean by ethical issues. Ethical issues, they are situations that require the application of a moral or ethical framework to form a judgment or choose a course of action. Okay, so it is something about how the person thinks, the value system of the person, and how he applies it to the research problem. Ethical issues, these are for every research work, ethical issues apply. Okay, so they are actually during our entire project work, these are the situations, wherein we require application of a moral or a ethical framework to form a judgment or to choose a course of action. See, sometimes this can be personal or it can be societal, social also, and we are always in a dilemma, which is the right course of action. Okay, there is no clear-cut picture. Then rather than ethical issues in research, it is actually the ethical dilemma that we have actually, in our daily life also. Ethical dilemmas are inevitable part of our life, from the personal decisions that we make to the business strategies that we have. We don't know, we keep navigating these complexities, more than the intuition. Actually, ethical issues, I can't think about my intuition. Okay, what my heart is saying, what my mind is saying, whether I'm feeling it right or wrong, whether killing the rat and getting the result is right or wrong. Every time, every person will not have that kind of mindset. Every person does not have the same value system. So what is put in place is that we have certain policies. There are certain bodies which come up with certain policies. There's a structured approach. Okay, with core moral principles. There is a ethical guidelines, means a structured approach with core moral principles. Because what I may feel right, you may feel it wrong. What you may feel it right, someone else may feel it wrong. So when it comes to research, let it be life sciences or physical sciences or any commerce or anything, everywhere the moral values keeps changing based from person to person. Okay. So to avoid such kind of dilemmas, we have a policy in place. Okay, we have a structured approach which is grounded in moral principles, which tells us whether to go for it or no. Okay, so that is known as ethical framework. Next slide, ma'am. Privacy and confidentiality. So this is one of the most important things, that is data protection. Now here, ensuring that participants' personal and sensitive data is securely stored and protected from unauthorized access. Now, for instance, as I told you, now suppose we have a department, we all work in a department, and suppose you have a HIV patient amongst us. So suppose I disclaim the name of the patient, then the colleagues may not work with him. The colleagues, though HIV is not a transferable disease, the colleagues may not work, and there could be some other kind of, rejection from them. They may force the person to leave his job. So what we can do is trying to keep the details of the person confidential. Okay, when this comes with regards to life sciences. Now, in the same way, suppose you're working, suppose there is a, sexual harassment in any workplace. So there also the person's identity is kept confidential. Okay, there is a research done of what exactly happened and how you have to come, what are the motives behind it, and what is the disciplinary action that we have to take. But there also the subject is kept confidential. Okay, so data protection is very, very essential. The person's participants' personal and sensitive data is securely stored. And coming to the informed consent, participants must be fully informed. Now, I'll cite an example over here is, now, for instance, it doesn't happen in all the government hospitals, but there are certain hospitals wherein, such unethical practices happen. Now, for example, you have a government hospital. Okay, so mostly what we see in a government hospital, we see that people come from rural backgrounds. Corporate hospital, definitely people from the urban background, people who really have sufficient money, who have insurance policies, go to the corporate hospitals. But the ones who go to the government hospitals are from the rural background. Okay, so when they go approach the doctor, there the doctor, the physician, is very well aware of the symptoms of that particular person, and what is the problem of the person, and what kind of treatment he has to give to them. So what they do is that, because the person, and sometimes it so happens also that the patient who comes to the hospital, if he has no proper family background, that could be one reason. Suppose he doesn't have anyone to take care of him, then if he's single, that could be one reason. Or sometimes what happens, a person is terribly economically very weak, has no money to pay the fee. Then also what happens, what people do generally, it doesn't happen with all hospitals, but certain cases where, the research ethics is broken, is mended, people simply make them get admitted in the hospital, and clinical trialing is done on these people. See, actually the patient should be informed. There should be a consent letter taken from the patient saying that, see, on the problem that you're struggling with, I have a drug with me. For my PhD work, I have done some research, and I have prepared a herbal formulation. Okay, now I want to use this particular drug on you. Now, suppose I go to the hospital. If someone is saying, I want to use a herbal drug, herbal formulation on me, will I give them the permission? I'm scared of my life, of my health. I'll say, no, that will not work out. I want a drug which is clinically tried, wherein 12 years of clinical trialing is over, and then it is released by the regulatory bodies. It's into the market. Already 3-4 clinical trials are over, then only a drug is released into the market. So 12-year long study is done on during this process of clinical trialing. So only after the 4 levels of clinical trialing, the drug is released into the market. Then I will use the drug on my body to cure my disease. This is what we all have in our mind. But what happens, suppose I'm doing my PhD work and I have to work on animal models initially, then only I have to come to the higher eukaryotes. First of all, I have to work on microorganisms. That's why we have antimicrobial activity purely in life sciences, if you see. And then I have to work on rat models, because it is a mammal very much similar to the human being race. Then I'll work on monkeys, and then I may come to human beings. But bypassing all these lower levels, if I want to work on the human model, that is a crime actually, which we shouldn't do. But what happens illegally in government hospital, this sample can be given to the patient. What if the patient is cured out of it? Then it is eureka, we have nothing to worry, our research is worked out. But what if the person loses life? Life is very precious, and we have no rights to simply kill some person by using the drug which I have prepared in my research without undergoing any kind of clinical trialing. So this is an unethical act. So I have to take the informed consent from the patient saying that I am a PhD student, I have done research, there is no clinical. See, what will a villager understand? What will he understand of what I'm doing? What will he understand what is allopathy? What is the drug that is released into the market after clinical trialing? And what is the drug that I have prepared in my research lab? I have not tried it on anyone, and I'm directly trying it on the human being. What will he understand? He will simply think that, yes, I'm being treated very well. Okay, so such unethical practices are going on in certain government and corporate also, which is corporate. It happens very less because people most of the time you have educated stuff going to the corporate hospitals, and the ones who go corporate hospitals, what happens, there are people are very anxious because we pay money. We are very curious to know what kind of medicines we are taking. Okay, we will at least Google it on the net and see what is the after effect of this particular medicine. But when it comes to the normal government hospital, people are so deprived with their health condition and they have no one to look after them. There is no financial support. So whatever is given to them is, medicine for them. So at that time also, when people are simply uh, ignorantly taking up, and if there is a positive effect, then well and good. But if it is not, but whether it is positive or negative, we have to take the written consent. The patient should know what we are doing with their body, what kind of drug we are giving to them, which comes without clinical trialing. Okay, so that's about privacy and confidentiality. Then coming to next slide, ma'am. Coming to misconduct in research. So, here we see data fabrication and falsification. You create fake data or alter data to misinterpret research findings. And, this is actually undermining your scientific integrity. This is actually not correct. And I don't think so. That's why, we have some standard journals rather than the predatory journals. All such fabricated data goes to the predatory journals, online journals. Uh, but it is not correct on our part. Just for the namesake, if you want to have a research publication, then you simply fabricate data without doing any work, without serving questionnaires or without doing any work. You simply try to fabricate based on some existing data. When you try to fabricate data and uh, submit a research finding, then that is not correct. These are the misconducts in research. Another one is responsible publishing practices. Okay, so first of all, what we do, someone else writes a paper, we give money to them and ask them, you write paper for me also. Or else it's always a barter system here. If you're publishing in your paper, my name is there, and if I'm publishing in my paper, your name is there, irrespective of whether I have contributed in your research work or no. So this is also wrong. Or irresponsible publishing practices, and basically when you plagiarize the data and you write. Then conflict of interest, the third one, that is recognizing and addressing situations where personal or financial interest could compromise the objectivity of research. As I told you, nowadays patents are sold. Nowadays, utility patents are sold. Then papers, research articles are sold. You have author 1, author 2, author 3, author 4. And so this is all incorrect ways. These are all, not the proper ways of handling research, because research is something very sacred, wherein, the data that comes out of research leads to further understanding of the problem, and for the benefit of the humankind and benefit of the society, research is done. It should not give false hopes to the public. Okay, once when the public gets to know that a so and so article published in so and so journal is fake, do you think that journal will have good market in the coming future? No, until you get to know. That's the reason now that we have impact factor, all these, after undergoing all these kinds of misconducts in research, only all these concepts have come into picture. But research is something, which a person does with whole consciousness. It shouldn't be for the sake of title, to get a doctorate degree or to increase your number of publications. Research should never be done like that. Now coming to plagiarism in, next slide, ma'am. Plagiarism in academic research, next slide, ma'am. And exactly, this is direct plagiarism or self-plagiarism, mosaic. Next slide, ma'am. All these are again the same things which I told you, but these are the why I kept this slide is to make people understand that these are the most common types of plagiarism that we found at institutional level. Okay, when our final year students are doing project, or our post-graduation students, or MPhil or PhD, these are the most common types of plagiarisms that we find in academics. Then coming to next one, ma'am. detection and prevention of plagiarism. So firstly, in this, we are having plagiarism detection tools. So right now we have several paid versions, okay, and some free versions. Free versions are very limited, but we have paid versions. So no, plagiarism detection tools, they are software applications that compare a text against a database of sources to identify potential plagiarism. So what are the most common detection tools are? Turnitin, Quillbot, Grammarly, Drillbit, Authenticate, and Orkut. Recently, Times of India has released an article on Authenticate saying that it is the best version available in India. Okay, so it is the best a plagiarism detection tool, Authenticate. But here also, number of times that we can use this particular software. So an institution can take a subscription of any one plagiarism detection tool, and the entire research that is happening in the institution, let it be student projects or let it be the research done by the faculty, can be checked for plagiarism by using that particular tool. Okay, so this is about plagiarism detection tool. These are all, purchased versions, but you also have some free online to an extent where plagiarism can be detected. Then every institution will have policies. We all have research policy wherein what is ethical and what is not ethical, and means to what extent plagiarism is now for the final year research projects. Okay, where all the research projects are later. When the projects are done, we then compile it and bring out an ISBN book. So before bringing out an ISBN book wherein you are checking for the plagiarism, so there we restrict the plagiarism level to 35% or 40%. This is an institutional policy again, so it varies from institution to institution. That's about institutional policy and how the seed money has to be dispersed. All these things come under institutional policies. Then training and education, definitely the research cell in every institution has to conduct workshops and seminars on what are intellectual property rights. It's been made a mandate now in the higher education that through IIC, Institutional Innovation Cell, we are having one program, one workshop or seminar on IPR made mandatory for all our graduation students, post-graduation students, and the faculty on campus. So training and education about what exactly is plagiarism, what is ethics, what happens when you violate these research ethics, what are the consequences. There should be a training and education given to the staff as well as students about it. Then next slide, ma'am. Ethical decision making in research. Now here, if you see ethical decision making in research, first of all, we have to understand what is a framework. What is a framework and models of research. So here, you have to know what is an ethical framework. Ethical frameworks, they are systematic methods for assessing and resolving ethical dilemmas by applying moral principles. As I told you before also, we should have a policy in place which tells us what is correct and what is incorrect. For me, what I may feel correct, the other may not feel it correct. So like that, in order to avoid that dilemma, we should have an ethical framework wherein, it is a systematic method for assessing and resolving any kind of ethical dilemmas by applying those moral principles. It is a structured process. Next slide, ma'am. It is a structured process for for evaluating what is right and what is wrong in various contexts. In this, suppose I'm doing research here, in my context, it may appear right. Now, for instance, if I tell you, if I cite an example, now suppose speaking lies is unethical. Speaking lies is unethical. But suppose I'm speaking lies to save a person, then it becomes ethical, right? So like that, this is an ethical dilemma for us. Lies is a negative term, so it is unethical. But suppose I speak lies to save someone, then it becomes ethical. So this is the ethical dilemma of what to be done. So in order to avoid such ethical dilemmas, we have come up with a framework. Okay. So to know about what is right and what is wrong in various contexts, it varies. It varies from one context to other contexts. So by adopting a framework, individuals can, they can approach ethical issues objectively. Okay. It ensures good decision making, and it will also align with the core values of the particular institution and of the principal investigator. There is consistency in the research. Okay. And this can be, this ethical frameworks are crucial, especially very crucial in healthcare. They're crucial in healthcare. They're crucial in law. They're also crucial in corporate governance. Then, here it is here, your moral choices can significantly impact stakeholders. So in these three areas, they are more important. They are important everywhere, but uh, this framework is very much important in medical field, in healthcare, in corporate governance, and also in law. So firstly, coming to this, to understand this ethical framework, before I go deep into all these models, I have to tell you that using this ethical framework is critical for several reasons. What happens? It offers a clear decision making. I will not be in a doubt whether now he has lies is unethical. So should I use this lies as a positive point because it has saved someone's life? Should I use it or no as an evidence? Uh, that kind of dilemma is not there in my mind now. If I have an ethical framework, then such dilemmas are not there. So it offers clarity in decision making. Why should we have an ethical framework? So that we have clarity in decision making, so that there is a structured path to evaluate ethical concerns. I will not make any hasty decision by emotion. Okay, suppose I have to give a decision in when it comes to my own family, then I may become very emotional. But if I have an ethical framework, I will go by the rule book. What exactly is written, what exactly is applicable, I will give my decision only in that particular format. So for that reason, we need ethical framework. That is one. That is, it offers clarity in decision making. Then they also offer consistency. Suppose next time if the same ethical problem arises, then I'll get to know in which way I had solved it previously. Then I will apply the same rule in the coming future also. So no, there is some kind of consistency, a set method which is very much justifiable, which is very coherent. No one can question me again. Okay, there is a set policy. That could be one. Then I'm also building a framework of trust. People will start trusting because it has nothing to do with my emotions. Today, if I'm an emotionally a very unavailable person, then might be my decision will be in one type of way. But if I'm very much emotionally drained person, then might be if I'm an overthinker, emotionally drained, then I may give another type of decision. Why this problem? So there is no consistency. People will not believe in the judiciary system. So for that, we have a structured format, and that is known as ethical framework. So the importance of having an ethical framework is, first of all, it helps us in clarity in decision making. Second thing is it is consistent. And third thing is people build in trust. Okay, they build in trust, and the decisions are very transparent, well reasoned, and a professional kind of setting. It's not what comes to my mind I tell off at that moment. It's not like that. It's a structured format. So now under this ethical framework, we are having certain models. We actually have 5 models, but these 3 are more prevalent. So the first one is utilitarian. Just give me 2 seconds. So the first model that we use here is a utilitarianism model. Now here what happens? Here we assess the actions based on the outcome. This is with regards to benefit of the community, benefit of a whole group, benefit of a larger community. This is not benefit to one person. This is benefit to the entire community. That is this utilitarian model. Okay, utilitarian model means, a decision-making model focusing on maximizing overall happiness and minimizing harm, considering the greatest good for the greater number. So this model is basically for, it provides happiness for a larger number of people. This policy, this model is basically applied in public policy. This model is applied in public policy, in business, in medicine, where decision impact large groups. Okay. Now, for instance, I'll give you an example. Now, we had COVID-19. So during COVID-19, the clinical trialing of the vaccines was not, we should undergo 4 clinical trials. Any vaccine that comes into the market should undergo 4 clinical trials. But in certain cases, with 2 clinical trials, with 3 clinical trials, and some with just 1 clinical trial also hit the market. But the government allowed it. The government allowed it. Why? For the greater good of the society, for the greater good of the well-being of the human being, because there were random deaths, uncontrolled death, because the coronavirus was spreading sporadically, that we couldn't control it. So we had to go for a vaccine which couldn't complete the 4 levels of clinical trialing. Some completed, I think so, 1 vaccine completed 1 level, and the remaining completed 2 levels, and 1 completed 3 levels of clinical trialing. But generally, any drug or any vaccine that has to hit the market has to complete 4 levels of clinical trialing, or sometimes more than 4 also. But here, for the greater goodness of the humankind, we in the sense, the regulatory bodies had to allow it even with the less amount of clinical trialing. So that is a utilitarian model of ethical framework for the betterment of the large group, or for the betterment of the community. So that is utilitarian model. Then coming to deontology. In deontology, this is actually based on the concept of the philosopher Immanuel Kant. Okay, it is a rule-based approach that focuses on duty and adherence to ethical principles. It argues that specific actions are inherently right or wrong. As I told you, cited before also, if lying is morally wrong, even if it could lead to a positive or positive outcome, deontologists they emphasize the importance of consistently upholding moral duties and principles, making this framework particularly relevant in fields like law, personal ethics, professional ethics. So lying is morally wrong, but if it is giving a positive outcome, then we can go ahead with it. So this is a concept of deontology. Deontologist means even negative trait, but giving some positive outcome, we can go for it. So this is basically person to person. Okay, this is all concerned with individual, whereas the previous utilitarian model, it was group-based model. This is individual model. Deontology is mostly applied for individual models. Then coming to virtue ethics. Virtue ethics, it is an approach that emphasizes moral character and virtues, guiding individuals to act in ways that exhibit human excellence and moral integrity. That's what's right and what's wrong. It's all Aristotle's philosophy. The ethical behavior, comes from virtues like courage, honesty, compassion, all rule-based models. Virtue ethics. Normally also, this is all rule-based models. Virtue ethics, like the moral character, is a foundation for ethical decisions. So morally, how strong you are, how moral you are, that you give proper decisions. This virtue ethics is all about abstract values. Okay, so now if I could conclude this particular ethical frameworks, in navigating ethical dilemmas, it requires something more than intuition. I can't say that, no, this vaccine is going to work. It has to be released in the market. Because I'm feeling, I have intuition, I can't simply release it in the market. Or this drug is working, I'll release it in the market. It shouldn't be like that. I should have proof that it has cured, it has killed the virus, or it has attenuated the virus. Then only I can release it in the public. Okay, so here for these ethical frameworks or models that have come into existence, it has nothing to do with intuition. There is something more than intuition. I should have some structured reasoning for it. I should have some proofs. Okay, I have, but definitely my values, uh, uh, this ethical framework, it goes in alignment with values along with a structured setup, so that I support the society at large, the well-being of the society at large. Okay, if we can see over this only, if we can see some of the next slide, ma'am. What is the next slide? Notable, yeah, notable examples of ethical research. Okay. Now, for example, now before, what exactly is notable examples of ethical research is, I'll start with an example. Now, for example, this Ebola virus. Okay. There is an outbreak of Ebola virus. Now, all people are dying. But in the neighborhood, I saw that some drug, XYZ drug was doing better. People, whoever consumed that XYZ drug, they were able to recover and get back to normal to an extent. Then is it correct on my part saying that that XYZ drug is the actual drug for Ebola virus? I can't say, I can't come to a conclusion like that. What we have to do, there could be some, see that XYZ drug may treat a person A suffering with Ebola virus, but that XYZ drug may not treat a person B who is suffering with Ebola virus. Then there is again a point of difference here. Why? That XYZ drug is not the target drug for that particular Ebola virus. It just happened coincidentally due to some other medical parameters. Might be the person was not completely infected with Ebola virus. There was a wrong diagnosis, and the XYZ drug that the person has taken, he's cured out of his illness. And simply people say that the so and so drug has cured that particular Ebola virus. That can't happen. So this is, uh, uh, one kind of ethical research practice, which is not correct. I have to conduct long-term research. There is two types of research here again, short-term research and long-term research. Especially when I'm telling a particular drug is treating a particular disease, I have to go for long-term research where I have to see the parameters. I have to see on aged, depending on age, young children or adolescents or aged people, then on male and on female. There's so many on normal women, on pregnant women, on normal human beings, on people suffering with secondary diseases like, rudimentary diseases like diabetes, metabolic, the ones who are having metabolic disorders. I have to see on various parameters. I simply can't say that for a group of people, if so and so drug has cured the disease, I can't simply generalize a drug for everyone. That is one thing. Okay. And one more thing, as I already told you, what happens in the government hospital, the clinical trialings, just like that, without the information of the patient, the patient doesn't know at all what medicine is given to him. We are doing an experiment on the patient. What we have to do on a rat, on a monkey, we are doing it on a human being. Sometimes we bribe. Suppose the patient is very strong enough. The patient, after taking the first dose, if he finds some change, if he has vomiting or headache, he may refuse to take the drug further. At that time, what I can say, I'll give you some money, I'll give you 1 lakh, you're very poor, I'll give you 1 lakh to your parents, to your family. You just succumb to us, you just listen to us and keep taking this drug. Instead of I doing research on a microorganism or a prokaryote or on a lower level eukaryote, I'm directly doing on a human body, which is unethical. So all these are, unethical examples of ethical research. Okay, how I'm violating the rules and regulations of ethical research. Now, what exactly happens, to generalize it or to summarize it, what I have to say, examples of ethical research practice includes informed consent. Tell the patient what you are doing. The patient should be informed about the study and give the consent to participate, whether you are willing to participate. See, I am doing research. This drug is not having any clinical trialing. I am doing it on my own in my lab. I want to test whether it is curing diabetes or no. Now that you are a diabetes patient, can I give my drug to you? Inform the patient. If the patient is saying yes and he signs the form, this is your informed consent, and you can go ahead with the patient. That is the first one. Then anonymity. Anonymity means sometimes, as I told you, in case of the patient, try to keep the particulars of the patient confidential. Okay, don't try to reveal his personal details. Okay, then confidentiality. Whatever results that we receive during the process of research should be confidential until and unless it is published in the research journal. Okay, because there's a lot of when you discuss your results, someone else also can publish it. The hard work is done by you, but someone else also, when you just share your work, someone else will publish it. So that also could be a problem. Confidentiality. Sometimes people lose their life also when certain, because if it is against the government, or it is something, whatever research that is being done, if it is showcasing the harmful side of the government, then there a person can also lose their life. So it should be very confidential. And the potential for harm concept. Potential for harm concept is where, it's a very crucial factor in deciding whether that particular research project should proceed further or we should stop it. Suppose we are in that particular research project, if I'm trying to kill more animals, if I definitely have to use an animal model and I'm trying to kill more, I'm losing a lot of life, then I'll have to think whether I have to continue that particular research project. In the same way, if it is doing some harm to the community, okay, then also I have to think whether I have to continue the research project or no. Then there should be honesty when I'm reporting the data or the results. I simply can't calibrate here and there in order to reach my outcome. There should be honesty in when I'm publishing my data. Then there have to be integrity. What do you mean by integrity? Integrity is, you follow those agreements. Okay, you follow the agreements in place. Sometimes we breach the agreement and go ahead, which is not correct. So integrity is more important, where you follow the agreements and promises that you make in the research. Then openness, you have to be open to suggestions. You should be in a position to listen what the others are saying. What is the research panel telling you? What are they trying to guide? So most of the times they will try to, discourage the concept. That suppose I come out with a new concept and I say, with this, the climate change can be controlled. The the harmful effects can be controlled. I can revert it back. Most of the time, people may not approve it at the first level. So I have to be quite open-minded in listening to new ideas and also listening to criticism. And then I have to respect the intellectual property. Okay, intellectual property means I have to, the creation of mind. That idea didn't come to me, that's well and good. But if the idea is good for the benefit of the mankind, I have to go for it. Okay, and if I feel the idea is really going to destroy the mankind, but beneficial to me, then I should not go for it. So there are some bodies, regulatory bodies, who are very much, unbiased, open-minded, which go through all these things. And there should be a reasonable monitoring happening, during the process of research, whether the research is being conducted responsibly or no. Okay, means, the contents that I'm using in the research, they have to be consistent. They have to be the same right from the beginning till the end of the research work. Then I have to respect my colleagues who are working along with me. And my other colleagues also should respect the research work that I am doing. They simply can't say that it will not work, or your research is in air and you may not get good results. Both at either ends, people should have patience until the outcome is to the public. And next, coming to consequences of unethical behavior. What are the consequences of unethical behavior? Legal consequences. It all depends upon to what level of plagiarism we are into. And, legal consequences, wherein the highest one is imprisonment. Okay. When you breach the research ethics, there is imprisonment. There is a decline in the morale. You have a negative image in the society, then there is a financial burden in terms of penalties. And in the worst of cases, we lose the license of doing research again. If you really, done terribly wrong things, we lose the research of doing research in the near future. So this is something that I could share about. Next slide, ma'am. I hope it's the last slide. Yeah. This is something that I could share about ethical issues and plagiarism in research. I've kept it very much, what we can understand. I didn't complicate it. I have kept it to an extent where we can understand research ethics on daily basis. If you are having any doubts, you can please open up.